Kia ora, New Zealand. Welcome to the Ignite 2020 session, Innovation in the New Normal, Role of Developer in Communities. I was reading and I was, on the books or online, I figured out that, over the last 2 decades, as developer have been, very become very essential across the industry and more places for developers to connect and have started to spring up, right? Online communities, if you take an example, like Microsoft blogging space, Stack Overflow, and open source resources, it became a place for the developers to meet, improve, and share their code without, being in the same office, right? And that has allowed for a shift to more work as hubs for connections and maybe job opportunities, or maybe sharing their experiences, sharing the work that they are doing, right? So that all we're going to talk about in the today's presentation, and we're going to hear from the community leaders, who are running the communities in the New Zealand hub, and we're going to hear their perspective. So let's get into the introduction. So my name is Sudhir. I work as Microsoft Azure Dev PMM in New Zealand, and my role and responsibility is to look after the Azure developer ecosystem within the New Zealand. So be it's an enterprise, communities, conferences, and my role is to just to unblock their journey onto the cloud. I've been in Microsoft from past 30 years. I speak in various national international conferences. I co-author a book as well, and I have put up my social connect pointers, which is the Twitter, and I'll be more than happy to connect with you guys. And if you have any questions, happy to answer you on that as well. Now, with that, I would like to invite our first guest, Leela Itati, and Leela, I would love you to, just go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Sudhir. Hello, everyone. I'm Leila. I'm actually Microsoft AI and Data Platform MVP. That means that I'm looking for all of the AI features that we have in Power Platform and also in the data. I'm based in Auckland. I'm running two user group. One is the data and insight that's mainly focused on Power BI with Resorad and Indira. And also I'm running another one that's AI that's focused mostly on artificial intelligence, and also running a couple of conferences in Auckland, and author of a couple of books and co-author, and same as the other speakers here speaking in different conferences and also in here or in other countries. And as Sudhir mentioned, my Twitter handle also mentioned there. So if you have any question about the AI space or about Power BI, I'm more than happy to actually ask and see your question. Thanks so much. Hand over to Sudhir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leela, for taking out time and joining us today. And now I will hand it over to Steve, Steve Knudsen from Christchurch. Steve, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Steve. I'm a Microsoft MVP for Office Services and Apps, and I'm based in Christchurch. Over the years, I've been involved in all sorts of community IT events, including running code camps in Christchurch and Auckland, lots of meetup groups and various other kind of user group activities. I've also been involved in blogging. I've got a blog and a YouTube channel that I run, and outside of outside of the community work, also I've been in the IT industry itself for nearly 30 years, 10 years of which I've been a managing director of a software engineering and SharePoint consulting firm, which I co-founded back in 2011. So thanks for your time today. I'm looking forward to having a chat, and as Leila mentioned, also reach out to me on Twitter or LinkedIn if you would like to talk.
Thank you so much, Steve, and thank you so much for joining us on today's discussion. And now I will hand it over to Rory. He's joining from Auckland. So Rory, just go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce yourself to the community.
Hi, I'm Rory. I'm a Microsoft Identity Architect, and I'm also an MVP in the enterprise mobility space, which is the area of the MVP categories that handles identity. So I'm really across Azure AD and Azure AD B2C and ADFS and all those good identity things. I'm a big advocate of IT communities, especially obviously being in Auckland, and I help run 3 user groups. I present like all of us to user groups here and overseas. I also organize with help of some other people the global Azure Bootcamp in Auckland, and obviously with COVID that's been sadly put aside for this year. There's my Twitter handle. I tweet often on identity topics. I'm active on Stack Overflow with the same name, RBraB. And I've got a blog on Medium called The New Control Plane, where I blog extensively on identity. And the reason for the name is that Microsoft have got the saying that identity is the new control plane. In other words, it's more than just authentication and authorization. It's basically a whole control plane around your ecosystem. So that's a little bit about me, and back to you, Sudhir.
Thank you so much, Rory, for joining us today. And it's been great, to see the different leaders from different backgrounds, different technologies that they are working on. And I'm looking forward to hear your thoughts. And people on the call, if you have any questions for Leela, Steve, or Rory, feel free to type in the Q&A panel. And then if you have any questions after today's session, the social pointers are there on the slide. Feel free to ping them, and I personally know them, so they will be more than happy to help you guys. So with that, let me just go to Steve. And Steve, let me ask you this, why community is so important for developers?
Thank you, Sudhir. So I've been working with IT communities for quite a long time, as I mentioned in the intro. And one of the standout events I've been involved in was running a hackathon after the Muslim terrorist attack in Christchurch that we had in 2018. And what we came out of that really was a need from people to be able to contribute their skills in some way back to the community that was meaningful. And so 3 kind of major threads came out of that. First one is the community providing a sense of well-being. So it's a place and belonging. So a place where I can go, I feel like I belong and I can participate. Another one is a way to contribute your skills as a developer back to the community, whether that's other developers or it's actually the wider community as a whole. And the third one is providing a safe environment where you can learn and grow. So being able to present, for example, gives you the opportunity to become an expert in a topic area, but you want to be able to present that safely, where you can get honest feedback, but not be beaten down, I guess. So people like to have those things. Those are 3 big things which have come out from the feedback I've had, and I reached out to the community to ask what they thought, and that's the sorts of answers that they gave. Over to you, Sudhir.
Cool. Thank you so much. And I think it's a great example how people comes together in joining in the community to help each other so that they can learn together and go together on their careers or their journey onto their life. So that's wonderful to know. Thanks, Steve. Rory, I want to come to you, and what inspires you basically, to lead in a community? What's your thoughts? I mean, what inspire you to, lead the community from front?
Yeah, thanks, Sudhir. I guess I can sum that up in just one word, and that word is passion. I've always had a passion for helping people, for spreading the things that I know, for helping people learn. I've done quite a lot of mentoring of people. I've got a lot out of the IT community in Auckland. People have done lots of good things for me, so I love to give back to the community and share knowledge, and especially because I'm in the identity space, I really like just to evangelize identity and get it out there. I'm across 3 user groups, as I mentioned, and we get a lot of really good feedback from people that come and see the event, and obviously there's a whole social interaction afterwards and a lot of networking, which unfortunately at the moment, of course, with COVID has had to take a back step. But we get a lot of good feedback, and it's a lot of fun to get involved with the community. In terms of other things, obviously there's these things like forums. I'm very active in Stack Overflow. I've been active in Stack Overflow for something like 12 years. and according to their stats, I've reached about 4.2 million people. And again, Stack Overflow is a way of really helping people. Again, I've got a passion for helping them. You know, I've been in that position where I'm stuck and I've got a deadline. So, you know, it's just really just helping people and helping them get better. And I get a lot of pleasure out of doing that. And I guess, you know, my motto is always, and always telling people this is that always be learning, always, you know, keep learning, keep enjoying new stuff, keep finding out new stuff, never stay static. So back to you, Sudhir.
Thank you so much, Rory. And what a wonderful thought, you know, the passion that drives you to lead the community and, you know, helping each other. And, you know, I myself, you know, contribute and I know that, you know, it's take a lot of your personal time, your family times, and you didn't get paid for that. I mean, that's another point I would like to make. And you guys are, you know, leading the community and, you know, driving and encouraging, inspiring people, you know, to learn more, to achieve more, which is wonderful. Let me just go back to Leela. You know, what do you think? You know, what goals do you want the community to contribute in your perspective?
Oh, thanks, Sudhir. So yeah, that's a kind of it's have kind of multi different goals. Actually, we can look at that. So one is about the as other mentioned, about the inspiring other people to work with the new technologies, and so that's a one, of course. And the other one is about, you know, that everything changed, at least in the Microsoft thing. So new technology coming up. So many people who actually working, maybe they didn't get a chance to come up with a new updates. So people who actually works with the new updates and new changes, they can share it with others. So the other one is about the networking and know that who can actually in which area can help you. So, or you can kind of exchange information together and find your kind of people that works in the same area for you. That can be really good. If you face any problem, you can discuss with them. Or for example, we have, at least in our meetup, we have lots of things happening about the job thing. So people who just come to New Zealand and they already work in other countries and they want to find the same group here. So they come there, they get familiar with the other people, and it's happened that they find job through that. So that's another, I can say that's the goal. And the other one that I think is really important is about the, so many people works with different things and they have different experiences, but not many people come and present. So they may scare after presenting, maybe some language barrier. Some people like me and the other comes from their second language, and maybe because of that they feel a bit that maybe they are not good enough to share the information. So these meetups actually help the people to be kind of easily in touch with others and see that, hey, they can share the information, they can present even in a 10-minute or 20-minute sessions, they can be involved, and also can be inspired for the different, you know, for the different genders. So female also see the other females presenting. That's also helped them to kind of them. So it's kind of the multi-goal. We couldn't just look at that one. It can be affect in the different demographic, people with a different goal, kind of the make their job better, or they want to actually find a job. So it can be different one. Thanks so much, Sudhir. Back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leela, for sharing your thoughts. And I totally agree, you know, bringing like-minded people together actually helps. And that happens with me as well. You know, when I started my journey in IT industry, I used to go to the community and, you know, discuss about the new trends, discuss about the new content, discuss about the technologies, the job opportunities, because if we look in the today's world, there are a lot of information available onto the internet, right? There's a lot of blogging space, the videos, YouTube channels, channel lines is also there. But what is the right path for me to go through, right? I mean, that's where the community and the leaders like you come into the picture, who can actually guide someone to, hey, you know, these are the correct materials for you based on your career aspirations, based on the technology that you're working on, you know, and it could be as simple as you know, moving from level 100 to 200, or maybe, you know, need some help on the certifications, right? So I totally agree with you. And one more example which has happened recently with me yesterday, which totally linked with what Rory mentioned about the passion is, I was doing something, studying some the new technologies, listening the Ignite, and my daughter came and said, "Hey Dad, I have a dance presentation in the school, so come and join with me." And then I have to go back, do little dance steps with her, and then come back and then start reading. So it's totally it's a passion. So with that, I think Rory, I'll come back to you, and I think when I met you first, we discussed about you work on the identity, and we had a brief discussion about what is identity is all about. But I would really love you to talk more about, is that the only favorite technology you have, or is there anything else that you love? And it'll be awesome if you can share some demo with us.
Yeah, thanks, Sudhir. Sure. So let me just share my screen. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Most awesome. Okay. So what I'd like to talk about is Microsoft Identity.web, which is a new library that's just come out in the Microsoft Identity world, specifically for .NET Core. So as I said before, I'm a Microsoft Identity architect, and there are my Twitter, LinkedIn, and my blog. So the Microsoft Identity platform it's a platform. Essentially, it's not a product. So you can't install it, you can't buy it. It is basically, they took all the different facets and attributes and artifacts around Microsoft Identity and put them into one portal. So you've got this nice defined way of deciding what you want to do, what language you want to use, and how you want to get there. So on the left-hand side, we've got the old ADL, which is Azure AD for Developers Library, and that was the V1, and that used ADFS. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the new MCEL, Microsoft Identity Authentication Library, and that works with work and school accounts. In other words, Azure AD, personal accounts, your Microsoft account, your social, Twitter, etc. And it also works with Azure AD B2C. And so what you've got here is a kind of one-stop portal that guides you into getting a sample that will help you get up and running very, very quickly, typically less than 5 minutes, to get something working in authentication. So as an example, when you do the quick start, it'll say, okay, well, what do you want to build? Do you want to build a web application? Do you want to build mobile, SPA or daemon? You say, hey, I want to do a web application. And you say, cool. And it says, okay, what language would you like to use? Would you like to do ASP.NET or Python or Java? And so, okay, I want to do ASP.NET Core, and that says cool. And then it takes you to a step-by-step tutorial where you can basically make some changes, download the project, run the project, set up the app registration Azure AD, and you're up and running with basically a bit of boilerplate plumbing that you can then add your business rules to. So you don't have to worry about the authentication. You've already got the boilerplate for that. You can do which is the stuff that you really know, which is the business rules and the stuff for your project. Now, that worked really well. And for me, especially, it's much easier to show people how to do it because I don't have to search all over the web for samples. But the MCEL code is still quite complicated. There's still quite a lot of code. It is quite difficult to get your head around sometimes. There's some problems with tokens and things like that. So that was the feedback that Microsoft took on board, and they said, well, let's create a new library that kind of abstracts the MCEL layer, so it'll still work on top of the identity platform, but it's going to be even easier. But it only works for .NET Core, and basically it's pretty much going to be the way that in .NET Core 4.5. So the Microsoft Identity Web is a library, which is a set of reusable classes for ASP.NET Core, and at the moment you've got instances of web applications and protected web APIs. And there's a wiki that takes you through the whole thing, and the links at the bottom, or you can just Google Microsoft Identity.web and that'll get you there. Okay, so what I showed you earlier in the identity platform, when you do that and you go through the process, you'll end up with a project that uses .NET Core 3.1. The Microsoft Identity Web stuff basically gives you .NET Core 5.0, and you can see there that not only is it a later thing, it also has a ton more feature set. So you've got B2C, adds personal accounts, you've got validations, you've got encryption, you've got all kinds of things. So you can see straight away there's a whole lot more richness that's coming, and making your life as a developer, you don't really have to understand all this identity and security stuff. It's all pretty much built into the boilerplate plumbing that you're going to use. Okay, so there's a whole lot of templates. So in terms of the ASP.NET stuff, there's for web apps, there's Angular, there's React, there's Razor. We're going to do the second one from the top. Now I've just chosen MVC2 just as an example. And so this is, and when you do, like you'll see from the command line .NET to .NET new MVC2 help, you'll see that you can actually have different authentications in the project that it builds for you. So you can have no authentication, you can have individual authentication, which means it uses a local database, which is SQLite. You can do B2C authentication. You can do single org, so that's authentication with a single Azure AD tenant. Multi-org is a multiple Azure AD tenant, so it's a multi-tenanted application, or you can do good old Windows authentication. So to create it with the templates that come with Microsoft Identity.web, you basically run a command line .NET new MVC2. You say, I want my framework to be net 5.0. My auth is single org, so this is a single tenant. You put in your domain, the domain where you're going to use to authenticate. You put in your client ID and your tenant ID, which are the information that you get from when you create the app registration, and that's the callback path that's going to come back to the application. And you can see
we can see PowerPoint presentation.
PowerPoint. Okay, good. Yep. All right. So I don't know what went wrong there.
No worries, happens.
Well, okay. So here is a directory on my PC. And if I do a dir, you'll see it's empty.
Right.
So if I then go and run that command that I showed you, so this is basically going to create a project, a .NET Core 5 project that does single tenant authentication. Right. So that's done. And then I'm going to build it. Right, so it's making a .NET Core project for me.
And you're using a template, so
I'm using one of the Microsoft Identity Web templates, right? And now if I do a dir, you'll see, hey, there's a whole project there, which is really cool.
Awesome.
And so now I just want to run it. This is going to use Kestrel and run the project for me. Hopefully, right, and so there you are. So it said, all right, we're going to look at localhost. So if I go over here into Chrome and do an incognito window. All right, so we now have an app, .NET Core 5.0. You can see I can log into Azure AD. And how long did that take me? That took me about 2 minutes or something. And now, if I go and load this project in Visual Studio, I just want to show you that quickly. All right, so if we look down here in the app settings.json, you can see here it's got the actual stuff that we put in the command line. And if I look at startup.cs, basically this is the only bit of code that you need to actually build, invoke what we've just seen. So this is basically saying use OpenID Connect, use the identity.web, and use Azure AD. And at the top, you can see that it's basically using identity.web and identity.web UI. So that's a really, really quick way of getting the authentication working. And literally, as you saw, you just run 3 commands and everything is done for you. So hopefully you found that interesting, and back to you, Sudhir.
Yes, we love it. And I think we can actually go and then build on top of the base template that we see, and then we can continue.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, perfect, perfect. Pretty awesome. Thank you so much, Rory, for sharing this. Pretty awesome to see how a lot of heavy lifting is get abstracted for the developers so that they can focus more on the business innovation and bringing the new features to help their customers rather than struggling with the libraries, installing it, and all that kind of a stuff. So thank you so much. Now with that, let's go ahead and move to Steve. Probably Steve, more or less the same thing for you because you guys are technical expert on your own area. So what is your favorite technologies? And we would love to see any demo that you want to share with us.
Great. Thanks, Sadir. I've actually I noticed there was a question before in the chat from Donald Nixon at Massey University, and this question was about the use of citizen developers, and so I thought I might just change my topic ever so slightly just to focus on that. Sure. And why that's important from a community perspective. So one of the things I really like about Power Platform and SharePoint is that it's a really easy entry level for someone to get involved in building things without having to understand the full development stack. But you can actually get quite good results quite quickly and for many common business cases. So what I'm going to do is share my screen and show a demo of some things that you can do around. So what I've got here on my screen is a basic SharePoint site. So you'll see this is a SharePoint site with a document library, and you'll see it's pretty plain looking. Right. Often the starting point in a SharePoint project will be we need somewhere to store our documents to collaborate, and this is often what people will build. Now, if this is something like, for example, controlled documents, you might want to enhance it a wee bit. And so often there's a few common things people would like to do. The first one is really around making an approval process. So having some way of sending those documents for approval to get signed off by a manager. Another thing that you would often want to do is know when that document was ready for renewal, for review, for example. And within the SharePoint UI, you can see it's pretty plain. So what I've done, and I've got one I prepared earlier, is I've created a version of that library, and I've incorporated two things: JSON formatting for columns, and also some Power Automate in behind the scenes as well. So I'll show you how this is all put together and explain why this is a good place to start if you've got a citizen developer in your environment, or you're working with people who aren't developers but want to be able to build some development kind of things.
Awesome.
So the first thing I'll show is this column formatting. So you'll see here I've got documents, and the documents have different statuses, so they can be a draft or approved document. Right. And you'll see over here, I've got the version number of these documents. So if I look down here, you'll see I've got some major versions and minor versions. And the minor versions, version 1.2 and 3.1 and 4.1, are all draft documents. So in SharePoint, it has built-in document version control. And so we're going to use that feature to automate the process. And you'll notice that all of the approved documents, the ones with the green, have all got a major version number with no minor version next to them. So this on the top here, for example, is approved in version 3. So in behind the scenes, what I've done is I have done two things. I've set up some JSON column formatting. So on this column here, if I go and have a look at the format this column, out of the box, Microsoft gives you the ability to customize that format. And nice, you can grab a piece of JSON code and you can customize how this formats and displays the different fields on the site. So what's really important to know is there's tons of community resources for this. So there's lots of information on GitHub, and I'll just flip over to GitHub here for a second, with lots of formatting examples of the sorts of things you can do, and downloadable code that you can start with. So for a beginner, it's quite an easy starting point. So I'm just going to go back out of here, and then I'll show you another thing that we've done, which is I've also used column formatting to create a button on the page here, the Send for Approval button. So the usual behavior in SharePoint is we right-click on an item, and then we have to go down and go to Automate, and then we have to wait, and then we have to go to Power Automate, and then we have to wait for our workflow to pop out. What I've done instead is I've just hooked that workflow to a button. And so if I want to say, take this middle one here, the tilt loader LG2 document, and send it for approval, I can just hit the workflow option. It's going to start the flow, and I can optionally have some parameters here. So I could put for example, a date that it was needed by, or I could put in the name of the person that I wanted to approve. In this case here, I'm just going to use the default. So I'm using a very out-of-the-box workflow. I'm just going to put in here test, and I'm going to run my flow. What that does in the background is it kicks off Power Automate. Power Automate is going to start an approval process. I'll just have a quick look and show you the approval. So the approval process itself is quite visual. You can build these up. You can start with a template and you can add to them. So I've just taken a default template and added 2 or 3 little enhancements to it to make it a little better. I've got a blog on that, so if you're interested, let me know and I can flick you the link to the blog. But over here, actually in the UI, my approver that I'm sending to has now received an approval request. And that request has also gone to their mobile device. So I've got the Flow app installed on your phone. You'll also get the approval and you'll see it's come through here. I can click on the approval to see it, or I can just go approve. So I'm just going to hit approve. And then I'm going to start complete the approval. So I'm just going to say, yes, I approve. And that's going to complete this flow. So that flow is going to then complete. It's going to say that it's successful. And it's going to send also an email notification back to me. Now, meanwhile, back over in SharePoint, no hands. It's now gone to approved. And you'll see that the major version, the version number is now version 4 of that document. So to build this as a beginner, start to finish takes about an hour's effort. And through that process, you'll learn how to do the basics of Power Automate. You'll learn a little bit about how to do, how to format, and a little bit about some of the settings within SharePoint. So easily achievable if you're running, say, a hackathon type event where you're needing to have some sort of process where forms are approved. It can be documents or forms. So that's my demo. And I guess, Sadia, you asked me one question, which was why should people care about this? And when I think about Donald's question in the chat, I think it's so that you can get people to participate in community events that aren't developers, but have aspirations to be developers or just want to be involved in that community without needing to know C# or JavaScript. So back to you, Sadia.
Cool, this is pretty awesome. And, I can actually think this a long time back, probably 10 years back, when in my organization, we used to have this, paper kind of a process where you have to fill your invoice, go to your team lead, get a sign, and then go to your managers, and then you have to go manually to your HR and submit it to them. I mean, it's take a lot of my productivity times to, go to the different people and get assigned. And I can see that, with this technology, everything can be automated so that we can more focus on the work rather than the logistic part of it. So this is pretty awesome. And as a developer, I can see if I have to build this in a, by writing a code, not hours, but it's probably going to take days me to done it. But you're saying we can do it in a 1 hour. Awesome. That's pretty awesome. That's super cool. And I think the tools like Power Automate, the Power BI, Power Virtual Agents can, automate and make you easy to work your solutions more easily. Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. And now I'll just go back to Leela. Leela, how about you? I know you are very passionate about AI, so I'm very curious to see, what you bring on today's conversation. What do you want to talk about, and why you want to talk about that, and and if you can share some demo, it will be pretty awesome for us.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Steve. So yeah, as you know that I'm passionate about the AI, not just in the AI in machine learning, in the Azure machine learning. Also, I'm check out AI in Power Automate, Power Apps, and also in the Power BI. So I'm check that because that's another things that people who works with them, maybe they want to bring it. So it's kind of is my interest on that area. But for today, I'm going to talk about not about the doing a machine learning for prediction. We are going to see that some issues that we may got through the machine learning that we call it as a responsible machine learning algorithm or responsible AI. So I'm going to share my screen. That's another side of the AI that we call it as a responsible machine learning principle. So that means that, okay, we create a prediction or we create a descriptive analytics, but we may face about three main problems. One of them is about understanding that. So it's always hard when you're data scientist or when you're using some pre-built machine learning in Power Apps or in Power Automate. You will see that there's some explanation about the accuracy and the other things. So how we can interpret that result? So that's a challenging. Right. That's how we can relate it to our business, and that's a really important, because bringing every kind of the not really good explanation can ruin whole of the effort. So it's really important that we see that how we can understand the result. And the other one that today I'm going to have a kind of the deep on that is about assess and mitigate model unfairness. So this has happened because of the maybe the data that we provide is not representative of the whole of the things that we have, and that can be really provide an unrealistic presentation for us. So that means we should also think about that. The other part, that's the second one, is really important, is about the protection. You will hear from people that hey, you create a model for the predictions, they got information from people. How about accuracy? How about the actually the security? How we can actually prevent data exposure with different privacy? So people are really worried about that. Their privacy maybe, you know, not really care about them, and just the algorithm use that and maybe share it with others. So that's another thing, because for creating a better prediction, we need more data. More data means that we need more detailed data that makes someone not really interested to share it. So that's another challenge we have. And also work with the encrypted one. So that's a kind of the broad one. And the last one is about the control. That means that how we can document that process. So it's really important to document the process of machine learning. So this is a really huge topic, so responsible machine learning. I'm just going to focus on one step of that is about the fairness in machine learning. So that's actually two common types of the AI accused harm. So one is about the harm of allocation. That means that you want to allocate some resources, or for example to a specific group, for example for the data that I have about the census data, we are going to, based on that, to give loan to some people. So maybe because we are biased about our data, we are not be fair about allocating. So that's a one. Another one is about harm of quality of the services, that AI system does not work as well for one group, but it works well for the other group. So that's a two common phase that actually we have. Before I'm going to the code and explain the rest, I just want to show you that how actually I have some code. We have some packages that help us through that. I'm going to show you that how I reach that. So I'm going to the Microsoft portal, actually portal.azure. I create a machine learning module over there. They have a new launch studio, so I click on that, and it navigates me to the new machine learning one. So for people who are actually maybe heard about Azure Machine Learning Studio, now we have it here as the name of designer. So it's kind of the embedded there. This is a kind of the new interface that we have from about 2 years or 3 years ago that developed it, and now is really good one. So here we have designer that is actually previous Azure Machine Learning Studio. This is automated ML, that's another discussion, and it has a notebook. So I use the notebook for this process. I have some Python code. It's same as the Jupyter notebook that we're using. So it's actually, this is the one that you can see my presentation also in there. I create a kind of the compute or the virtual machine for that, and is running. So that actually is run this for me. So that's the environment that I'm working now, if you're curious about that. So I'm here, I'm going to actually talk about a problem that we have for the allocating the loan. We have a data set about the loan. We have information about age of people, the workspace, and the other. We want to allocate loan to people, but we think that the gender of the people, female or male, can be, regarding that, can be unfair actually. So we may kind of give loan because of our data type that we have mainly to the male, and it's become kind of unfair about that. So here we need to create a group fairness. That's in this example is gender of the people. And we need to import some of the packages. So these are the actually packages that we need from Python named fairlearn. So just load that one. The other is the normal one that we have for working for the machine learning and the other. After that, I'm going to actually to load the data. So this is the data that we have. So as you see that the data has age of the people, what's the native country they are, capital gain, their gender, their race, relationships. So some demographic information about the people. Next, I'm going to actually, because I think the gender can be an unfair one, so I kind of discard the gender of the people. So I just extracted from the data. So that's why you see that that's column. Then I create a test and training. So you know that in machine learning, we need to train and test to create two separate data sets. So I did it here. And I run without doing anything, I just run the logistic regression machine learning on the data. So now we are going to see the result is actually should create a dashboard for us that shows that how's the fair learn, how much we are fair in this. So I'm going to get a start through that. So here we are going to be look at the gender. So that's a one. And we are going to measure that how much we are fair regarding the female and male. So based on the accuracy one, is create a dashboard for us. So just very briefly, these colors, so this is about, both of them are about errors, is about that how much the system was good in predicting. So the orange one is when that actually for the male people that we we think that we shouldn't give them the loan, but actually we did. And the blue one is actually that means we give them the loan, but we shouldn't. If you compare the male and female, you see that we have more errors in the male section. So 12%, 5%, 6%, and 1 point. So that means that there are less accuracy in the male part. And if you look at this party, that means that how much we are actually not look at the group with the difference of the group, you see that we have higher number in the female part. So this actually shows that how we are unfair about the female part. So we apply, I'm not going through the algorithm, it's maybe not really relevant, just showing you we apply the grid search, that was a part of the algorithm. And finally, by applying and mitigating and applying the algorithm of grid search on the data, we come up with two results. So the first one is this one that actually our algorithm without applying anything has 84% of accuracy. But we have lots of unfairness or disparity in that. You see 60%. In the first, when we mitigate that, yes, our accuracy from 84 reduces to 82, but at least we become more fair regarding the results. So you see that actually how this fairness can be, yes, is impact on the accuracy, but actually is able to reduce the disparity. So that means that we are not biased about men and women. We just separate the gender, and we're able to kind of provide the loan based on the people performance or the other things. So that's a really new subject that we have. I'm looking forward to kind of more work with that. And yeah, that's a kind of the issue in any conference we talk, people actually worry about that. Yep, thanks so much, Sadir. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Leela. This is wonderful, and I can, I can look from the AI developer. I mean, I'm not a data scientist, but I do some AI here and there.
Yeah.
And data bias, I know, but looking from the model perspective, how fair the model is, it's a kind of an eye opener for me. And thank you so much for sharing this. And I think I should go ahead and learn and look into more into this. So really appreciate that. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, all of you. Now, I think we are close to time. We still have some time. So let me just go and talk. Steve, what are the, if I may ask, what are the top 3 takeaways from your perspective, for the developers, maybe from the community, from the sessions, or maybe from your side, what those would be?
Yeah, thanks, Sadia. So I think 3 things to really think about. One, the first one is that participating in the community really gives you an opportunity to learn and grow in a safe environment. So making it, but if you're leading a community, also make sure that you're providing that environment for others. I think it's really important. I think also, there's a really desire from a lot of people to be able to contribute back to the wider community, so outside of IT, using their skills. And to put it into perspective is, if you're a builder, you could go and build a playground at a school. If you're a software developer, what can you do that use your skills? Because you might not necessarily be good at building. So finding ways to give back to the community through the wider community, through user groups, or through participating in other community activities, it's very rewarding. And I think the third one is like, it just gives you a sense of belonging. You're part of a larger group, and whether that community is local or whether it's a global group that you're involved in, or community of people that you work with, having that sense of belonging is just good for you. So jump in, give it a go. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much, Rory. I'll probably ask you the same thing. I mean, from your perspective, what do you think? What's going to be top 3 key takeaways for the developers?
Yeah, can you hear me? Because my screen is probably frozen. Good.
Yes.
So yeah, so I'm not really a developer, so I kind of changed the question a little bit to the kind of takeaways for security. And Fair so enough. The number 1 is use multi-factor authentication whenever you're doing anything, because Microsoft stats that cuts out 99% of attacks. The second one is forget about passwords. Passwords are just a pain in the butt, and go passwordless. There's a whole range of options that you can do in Azure AD to do that. For example, using the Authenticator app. And the third one is to block legacy authentication. So legacy authentication are apps that don't use modern authentication, so they don't use OpenID Connect. And because of that, they can't support MFA. So basically, by blocking them, you are blocking out the old technologies, and you are removing, quite a big attack vector. So those are my 3 takeaways for security. And back to you, Sadir.
Thank you so much, Rory. And I can echo with your sentence where you say, remembering the password is a pain. I mean, in today's world, we have a lot of applications, a lot of devices, and remembering the passwords, it's not easy. So thank you so much, Rory, for sharing your thoughts. Leela, what about you? What do you think about what is the top 3 key takeaways?
Oh, thank you. So actually, yeah, they mentioned many of them. Just one of them from the AI part. So there are always a question that, so should we learn, for example, R and Python, or we should stick with a pre-built? So the same question that they have people from that kind of the data science citizen or something. And I always says that they are combine each other, they are complement each other. So just to be a developer, for some questions, you need to write your own R and Python and prediction, but for some scenarios they are already there. For example, in Power Apps we have a business card reader, so you do not need to write the image processing. It just works very well, so you can create apps very fast. You don't need to write NL, neural network or complex things to just create that. It's already there. But for some scenarios, for example, you need to do that. So that's actually the first one that I think for developers is matter to learn both of the pre-built and custom AI at the same time together. And the other one, as Steve mentioned, that that's a back to community. What's the main problem the community has? So focus on that and try to find that how we can help the community to kind of not just the developer community, but the other broadcast, what's the main problem people have, and we can actually focus on that one. Yep. So the other things actually they mentioned already. So thank you, Sadir, back to you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Leela. And I echo what you said. There's no need to reinvent the wheel if something is already there. Just go ahead and use it and keep learning. I mean, that's also, if you can see, At least to me, I'm pretty old now and I'm still learning, right? And back to the community. And it's a very interesting point. And what I feel is when you learn something, when you talk to the community, right, you get to meet different people in the community, and they actually bring a new dimensions to your thought, right? I mean, you're probably looking as a learner, you're looking from the one dimension, but when you talk to someone, they basically bring another dimension to you, and that's where you said, oh, okay, I didn't look into that dimension, so let me just go and learn more about it. So it's not always about we as a leaders goes in the community and do the knowledge transfer, but we also learn from them, right? Cool. I mean, that's pretty good, pretty awesome. I think we are coming to the end, but we have some time for the Q&A. So we'll just go ahead and scroll through the Q&A over here. And if you have any questions, I would highly encourage everyone to just go ahead and type in, and we'll take. And I can see in the Q&A panel, the moderators and as well as they are speakers, when they are not speaking, they answer some of the questions. I really appreciate that. One of the questions I can see is from Scott, and it says, how would one help a person who's stuck in an object-oriented programming paradigm move to something like data-oriented designs and learning multi-threading? Okay. I mean, I have trouble showing others because I think about the code, how it runs on the physical level versus the abstraction in computer science, I'm assuming. It's more related to data. Leela, you want to take it, share some thoughts?
Okay. Okay.
That's a question from Scott.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, you're reading, I can just go ahead and share some thoughts. Scott, I think I was on the same boat. I was used to be a developer long time back, and then I moved into the database world. And that time, which is my luck, or maybe the industry was evolving. We only used to have the RDBMS engine, right? But then again, yes, I have to go through the learning. I need to understand behind the scenes how you actually design the database, different normalization form into the database, and I used to go to the community and talk to the data leaders back in India, and get my questions clarified from them and how should I look into. But now today, data is gone beyond, I think, everything. I mean, you have databases, you have different types of databases, relational, non-relational, graph database, and so on and so forth. And then you have various terms like big data, advanced analytics, AI, right? So it's all about, learning. It's all about, talking to the leader who can actually guide you and, take you through this journey. Leela, I mean, over to you if you want to add more.
Yeah, that's a really actually good. I just read it again, and I can say, yeah, that's a one. So because this actually there are some roadmaps and some mapping between the OOP and the other data oriented. So there are lots of guide about that. I can, Scott, if you send me an email, I can share some of the articles about that to you. And also, as you mentioned, I think we have these topics mainly in the SQL Server one. So I know that we have one meetup here in Auckland that Zoran running. Also, if he's in Christchurch, Hamish also has a meetup on that. So they are actually have lots of discussion about these scenarios. And if you I can share some links later on. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. I think if from the general perspective, Steve or Rory, if you want to add something on this.
No, not really. It's not really my area.
I would just say find a use case and example and work through it together. If you're trying to coach someone and it's a coaching exercise, then learning by doing is the best way to learn, I think, in my view. So I would just find an example, start small, and then kind of understand concepts, and then scale up once you understand the basics.
Right, and I totally agree with Steve. Learn by doing, and I believe in when your code works, I like it, but when my code doesn't work, I love it, because then I need to get into to learn why it's not working, look into the behind the scenes, what's happening, and then my learning is more. So thank you so much, Steve. Another question probably is Steve and Rory for you. When the feature of SharePoint and OneDrive integration with Azure AD B2B will go live. After this, don't user needs to register their emails with Microsoft?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have the dates for that.
Yeah, I don't know the timeline.
Okay.
I think I'm not sure who's posted. It's an anonymous post, but if whoever's posted that, if they wanted to reach out to me on Twitter, so my Twitter handles, I'll post my Twitter handle to that comment. But I'm happy to follow up and find out.
Cool. And I think the rest of the question already answered. So again, thank you so much, speakers, for joining in. Thank you so much, people who are listening to us, for your time. And I'm sure that you must have learned something. I learned a few things from these leaders, and I'm sure you also learned some few things from them. And get connected with these leaders. I know them personally. They are very helpful, and they'll be more than happy to connect with you. Learn together, work together, and build this community within New Zealand. And let's go together and build and become more stronger in our own areas. So thank you so much again, all of you, for your time, and enjoy the rest of the Ignite. Bye.
Bye.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for organizing.
Yes,
Bye.
Yeah. Good.